Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. But as we all know, I do not do this program by myself.
Nope, my name is Mike Piwowarski. I am your co-host from the East Coast. That's the coast with the most, from the co-host with the most here on the Rundown, 2A Views, Conservative News. Craig, how is your Thirsty Thursday going?
It is going quite fine, quite fine. I do believe that I will be able to begin my weekend today. Not quite on Friday, but hey, a day early. So I'm excited.
There you go. That's good stuff. It's good stuff. Anytime we can get that weekend in 2-3 days before scheduled, that's the way it's supposed to work.
Exactamundo, exactamundo. And just for the rest of you out there, as you're getting your weekend started, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. However you are partaking of the program, let your friends know that this is the show to be watching. Let them know that even if they're not watching it the way you do, if they're not watching us on Facebook or they're not watching us on YouTube or on Spotify or on OpsLens, let them know they can also listen to the program. Wherever they get their podcasts, you can find us. Just make sure to like, share, subscribe, and encourage your friends to do the same.
Craig, I have some good news for us and for all the listeners and viewers out there as well.
Yes, sir.
Big announcement. Big, really big, really big. In the wee hours of the morning last night, I received an email, our official invitation back to the 2023 SHOT Show on Radio Row. So you'll see
yes.
Arms Room Radio and the Rundown on Radio Row.
Just so you guys know, between the two programs, we do more interviews than anybody else there on SHOT. So if you're looking for SHOT coverage, you're looking for coverage of people talking about what's going on at SHOT. Look, Arms Room Radio and the Rundown are the places to be. They're the shows to watch.
We took top honors last year. The National Shooting Sports Foundation named us the top programs of Radio Row of SHOT Show.
Right. And by the way, and we're one of the few non-national, I want to say non-national, but trust me, we got some pretty big hitters who are there doing programming there during SHOT. And for us to be named as such is a pretty darn big deal.
Yeah, like with Arms Room, we're on 50 stations, but that doesn't compare to the 200, 300, 400 of the Mark Walters and the Tom Greshams, those kind of folks. But we're knocking it out of the park when we're there.
Well, because we're working. We're either, if we are not doing interviews, we are scheduling interviews when we're there, and that's the important part. The main thing is for us. The reason why we go there is not just for the evenings of consumption of alcohol and fellowship, but it's because we want to bring the experience to you.
Right, of the consumption and fellowship. Yeah.
So. No, that's not televised. that is not broadcast. Thank God, except for when we used to do booze with DeLuz.
I just say it's been televised before.
Okay? It has been. Just look it up. That's all I'll tell you.
And I was fine. I was good. So
yeah. He was not fine. He just played on TV a guy who was fine.
Well, if you play on TV that you find, then you fine.
All right. Well, we'll give you that. We'll give you that. But anyway, yeah, SHOT Show is going to be phenomenal, and it always is. We always have a really good time. We always get a chance to learn a lot of new things and meet a lot of new people, and we look forward to introducing you to them and them to you. All right.
Here we go.
Let's get into very, very big news today, or at least it's big news for the state of Florida, but I think it's an example of Captain Florida leading the way for the nation. And being as you are, you reside in the state of Florida, Mike, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let you introduce this, introduce the program, or introduce what went down.
Oh yeah, this was wonderful. Earlier today, the governor of Florida, Captain Florida, Ron DeSantis. Now he also had his office leaked this last night. There's going to be a very big announcement this morning at 10 a.m. So we were all waiting. And then, of course, I guess today nobody thought to coordinate was the 3 launch day of 3 spacecraft from around the country, including the Blue Origin, also at 10 a.m. So we had to wait a little bit extra, but we got to see it. So here's what happened. You understand? Everybody understands around the nation that this guy, Governor DeSantis, is no joke. He's a conservative rock star. He's a man of action. He's not just sitting in the office, wondering why other municipalities and counties aren't doing anything to make sure that the state laws are followed. Well, we have one of the counties here that has a state attorney's office that, and listen, in Florida, there's some counties that have, or some, as a state attorney that has multiple counties underneath it. This happens to be one state attorney per one county over there in Hillsborough County, which is Tampa. So that's the Tampa area. And Tampa has very, very quickly over the last year or two turned to a lot of these woke principles that you see from many other states. In fact, when you look at the crime rates and the murder rates, Tampa actually just broke the top 10, being the only one in a Republican-controlled state. So their state attorney over there, from the day he got in, said he wasn't going to be prosecuting people. He actually came up with a what they call it a conviction crap. What do they call it?
Moratorium.
No, they made a unit that goes back and reviews all convictions. Oh,
right.
A conviction review unit, I think it is. So they can find out if anybody's in jail, they can get them out, that they don't need to be there. So you have the state attorney actively working not only to not prosecute the current crimes, Craig, but to go back and release people that are already in jail is what they have them focusing on. He said that he won't enforce certain laws. He won't enforce, the abortion law in Florida, which is like a third trimester deal, because abortion is one of those ones in Florida, like I told you before, that is allowed. But there was many other things like this that he said he wouldn't be prosecuting. Well, the attorney general for the state and the governor's office did an investigation, and they win. And they got all the law enforcement together. They all did the interviews, and they relieved this dude on the spot today. Said, you're out. You're done. You've been relieved, suspended from duty. And by suspended, he means done. There's no going back. This is suspended until if you choose to have a hearing, the state Senate listens to your hearing. The Republican-controlled state Senate would listen to your hearing and take a vote whether you get your job back or not. Otherwise, he's appointed local judge, Republican judge that he actually appointed a few years ago into the office of state attorney. Her previous experience there was at the state attorney's office until this woke nonsense hit it, and then she went and became a judge. So you've got a governor here that has done exactly what he said. If you break the law in Florida, we're going to punish you. So it's really good to see.
Morning. Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you. Thanks to Sheriff Chronister for having us here for today's announcement, and we're glad that we're back in Hillsborough County. Our government is a government of laws, not a government of men. And what that means is that we govern ourselves based on a constitutional system and based on the rule of law. But yet we've seen across this country over the last few years, individual prosecutors take it upon themselves to determine which laws they like and will enforce and which laws they don't like and then don't enforce. And the results of this in cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco have been catastrophic. You could go in San Francisco and steal a certain amount of merchandise, and you just would, by definition, not be prosecuted. That has undermined public safety. It has really hurt these communities, and has been devastating to the rule of law. So as I saw that happening across the country earlier this year, I asked my staff in my office to look around the state of Florida and to make sure that that was not going to happen here, where you would have individual prosecutors nullify laws that were enacted by the people's representatives. They spoke with law enforcement throughout the state. They spoke with line prosecutors throughout the state, and it all came back to this area here in the 13th Judicial Circuit in Hillsborough County. And the response that we got was a lot of frustration on the part of law enforcement, for criminals being let go and crimes not being prosecuted. And so we looked into it, and we compiled a lot of the record. And I can tell you it's been a very, very troubling record. So the prosecutor, state attorney for this judicial circuit, Andrew Warren, has put himself publicly above the law. In June of 2021, he signed a letter saying that he would not enforce any prohibitions on sex change operations for minors. And that's a debate that we're having mostly administratively and through medical licensing in Florida, but other states have enacted penalties on the people that would perform those, which are really disfiguring these young kids. And he said, it doesn't matter what the legislature does in the state of Florida, he's gonna exercise a veto over that. He's also instituted policies of, quote, presumptive non-enforcement. And this involves an array of different things, and you'll probably hear Sheriff Cronister and some of the other law enforcement officers talk about it, but that is not consistent with the role of a prosecutor. Yes, you can exercise discretion in an individual case, but that discretion has to be individualized and case specific. You can't just say you're not going to do certain offenses. And then most recently, after the Dobbs decision was rendered by the U.S. Supreme Court, he signed a letter saying he would not enforce any laws relating to protecting the right to life in the state of Florida. And mind you, we have had prohibition on third trimester abortions for a long time. We've had prohibitions on partial birth abortions for a long time. And then most recently, the legislature enacted and I signed protections for unborn babies at 3.5 months. And when they are aborted, it's typically done through a dismemberment procedure, which is really inhumane. Nevertheless, that is what the legislature has enacted, and it's not for him to put himself above that and say that he is not going to enforce the laws. We don't elect people in one part of the state to have veto power over what the entire state decides on these important issues. The Constitution.
There you go. Can't hear your sound, Craig. Can't hear your sound.
Apologies, my apologies. So what
There you
he's
go.
saying is that he's not just doing it for him being woke, but the fact is he's being derelict in his responsibility and in his job, which is to enforce the laws. He doesn't get you don't get a blanket veto. You get some discretion in individual cases. But he's decided, and he has said in multiple cases, that he is not only has he said, but in some cases he's actually enacted or conducted himself in a way in which he's just not enforcing the law. And that's not his job.
Yeah, it's absolutely not. And the governor went in today and said, "You're out of there." He just pulled him out. He was done. Yanked him. So,
well, and
good to see.
That's what you should have happening in places like California, in places like New York, where you have prosecutors or Illinois, where you clearly have, and once again, I feel it's very comfortable to say George Soros funded and supported district attorneys who've decided they're not going to enforce the law. And so you can't blame law enforcement, because no matter how many people they arrest, doesn't matter if you have prosecutors who say they're not going to enforce it. And so then you wind up with cops saying, well, I'm not going to bother to arrest them if the DA is not going to prosecute them.
We just saw in New York, it's the Republican candidate for governor there, Led Zeppelin, I was calling him, Leo Zeldin. He said if people disobey the law under his tenure as governor, he would remove them from office. Well, guess where they're getting that playbook from, Craig?
Yep. Well, and by the way, keep in mind that was a gubernatorial candidate who was attacked on stage by a man with a knife. Yep. And later that day, that individual was released on his own recognizance. You attacked someone, a sitting congressman, and a gubernatorial candidate was attacked by a man with a knife at a public event. And the district attorney let him go on his own recognizance.
Yep. Armed federal crime. Let him go. Yep.
Yes. But once again, when you don't enforce the law, here's the thing. There are people out there who are they're not victims. No, they are people who are predators. And when they know that the prey are not protected, they are going to be emboldened. And what Ron DeSantis is saying is that, Florida is not a crime business friendly state.
Yeah. You want to come to Florida? We're going to make your stay long if you're going to commit crimes.
Oh yeah, you will spend some time in the pokey. So
That's it.
once again, hats off to Governor DeSantis. By the way, I thought it was phenomenal. Once again, I love to watch him respond to I love to watch him respond to reporters, because he pretty much handed them their hat. Like one asked them, well, did you in this process, did you bother to speak with the state attorney and get his side? He's like, I didn't need to. When you say as a matter of policy that I am not going to enforce the law, and then you do not enforce the law, as has been stated, I don't just have the right to do this. I have the responsibility to remove individuals who are not willing to do their job, who are derelict in their duties that they have sworn to do.
There it is. There it is.
Bam. So
easy enough.
Bye. All I gotta say is bye, Felicia.
That's it. Bye, Felicia.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Very, very happy to see that. Because you know what winds up happening, Mike, is you wind up with cases like in our next story. This is an incident where, once again, another failure of government, another failure of representatives to, once again, to do their job, right? So this was an instance where an individual was arrested for burglary and was released. I'm kind of stalling a little bit because I just realized that I closed the page, but he was arrested for burglary and was released from prison. And then as a result, needless to say, he would then turn around and go and stab someone. He would go out and he would stab somebody, which, by the way, is another example of like what we talked about. It's like when you decide that you're not going to enforce the law, when you tell people that, well, the law really doesn't matter. I'm going to do what I want to do. And once again, this was the guy who stabbed someone in Times Square. And I finally got the story here, so we'll pull it up. So I love the way even the New York Post, they're trying to be politically correct. And they're saying the accused Times Square slasher set free on violent robbery charges days before the attack. Now, we've seen this happen in Los Angeles. We've seen this happen in San Francisco, in city after city with liberal prosecutors. We've seen folks like this guy from Manhattan District Attorney's Office basically saying that he was being free on violent felony as a part of their argument as why he should be held on $200,000 bail over this current attack. So I'm wondering now if they're actually going to wind up keeping this guy, holding this guy now that he's actually committed another violent crime.
Yeah, and here's the problem, right? During that first attack, prosecutors requested a bail of $50,000, but the judge, the Queens judge there said, no, I'm going to release without sending him monetary bail. So and the guy went out. And the guy's a whack job, right? He needs to go to jail. He needs to go to the psychopathic lockup over at Bellevue Hospital if they can't take him down at Rikers. You need to get these guys off the street. They need to be gone. This is the type of stuff that's happening. Crimes are escalating, and I'm thankful I got a governor who does not allow these type of people to remain in office.
Well, and sadly, I do not have a governor that does that. In fact, two of the most high-profile shootings in the country within this last year. One where a guy was supposed to be in jail. He was released from county jail after physically attacking a California highway patrolman. They were supposed to call Immigration Naturalization Services because he was here illegally. We're a sanctuary state, so they didn't call. Within weeks, he was in a situation where he was in a dispute with his baby mama, and wound up killing his two children and a person who was supervising his visitation with his two kids. And then within months, you had an individual who was convicted of rape in 2018, not rape, I'm sorry, convicted of domestic violence and sentenced to 10 years in jail, in prison, was let out after a little more than 4 years in jail, and was part of a mass gang shooting that took place in downtown Sacramento, where 16 people were shot and 6 were killed. Once again, these are people released from jail, released from prison, by policies, by quote unquote smart on crime policies that actually seek to treat violent criminals as victims. And you wind up with people just being victimized as a result of their policies. And the oddest part about this guy from New York, Mike, is that's going to be labeled a hate crime. Since she was Asian, it'll be labeled a hate crime, and they'll probably wind up blaming Donald Trump for it.
Wait. Can you have a hate crime if there's not a white person involved?
Well, you can. It's just labeled as, instead of black on Asian hate crime, it's labeled as anti-Asian hate crime, which is always the fault of Donald Trump for calling COVID-19 the Chinese flu, Wuhan flu. Wuhan.
Yeah, New York actually does have a policy under the last mayor where they were going after trying to protect Asian. They remember they had a big ordeal about any crime against an Asian was a hate crime, no matter what it was. Even if it was another Asian, it was still a hate crime. So
right,
kind of ridiculous. But yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that it could be a hate crime if it wasn't a white person involved. That seems to be what all the woke nonsense is. It has to be a white. There has to be a racist, and that's the white guy. So
he probably will not be charged as if it were a hate crime, but in terms of the statistics, because he's black, it probably won't be charged. He probably won't face the criminal penalties of a hate crime, but it will likely go down statistically as an anti-Asian hate crime.
Yeah.
So you're right in the sense that legally he probably won't face charges.
And that's just because of the decision.
Of a hate crime.
Right. That's because of the decision of the district attorney's office up there. Listen, folks, under law, we may kid around. Under law, if you go after any other race, creed, religion, anything like that, out of hatred, if your intent is hatred of, then you're charged with a hate crime. If a bad guy, a black guy robs a white guy or the other way around, it's not a hate crime unless you do it out of hate. I'm robbing you because you are this. That's when it becomes a hate crime. But many people want to label hate crimes just when you have opposite races or genders, and it's not so.
Well, it has to deal with motivation, but in many cases, there is the assumption that if the person is white, if the attacker is white, and the attacked or the attackee, the person who's being attacked, the victim is of another race, then there's almost an automatic assumption by some policymakers that it is in fact a hate crime.
Listen, I one of the things I love about New York. I hate the laws there. Obviously, it's why I don't live there anymore. But one of the things I love about New York is the diversity of New York City. And it's amazing, and everybody, for the most part, gets along. It's a hurried, friendly relationship, right? But if you were to try and spend the time to find somebody that you probably was not your minority group or not in your majority group, you'd be spending a lot of time. So I don't know how they could call everybody a hate crime there, because nobody's the same in New York. Everybody's a Italian, or you got the Hebrews, you have blacks, you have Jews. There's just, everybody walks around in that city as a melting pot, So any crime there could be called a hate crime if you based it solely upon color of skin,
Oh no, completely agree with you. But like I said, I am just, in this particular case, this is an example. See now, with the sorts of prosecutors that Ron DeSantis would put in place, that sort of stuff will not be happening in Florida.
Oh yeah.
Or if it does happen in Florida, you can bet that those state attorneys or district attorneys or local prosecutors, you can bet that they will be replaced.
Yeah, yeah. And listen, he's not afraid to do it. He's relieved the sheriff of the largest county in this state as well. Yes. So it's not. It's not like he's picking and choosing small people to go after. Tampa is the second biggest city in the state and one of the biggest in the Southeast. So
right, and he's all about making sure people are doing their job. And it's also funny because I would love to see a little bit more. How do I want to put it? I would love to see a little bit more people going after some of these folks who are refusing to uphold the Constitution, because as you know, In many when you do the oath of office, you uphold you pledge to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, but also of, in your case, the state of Florida or the state of California, in my case. And it would be nice to see people actually being held accountable to that as well.
There you go. Yeah.
All right.
Good stuff.
Moving right along. How many of you have heard that? Well, we've heard the president say it multiple times. You don't need an AR you don't need an assault weapon to go hunting, right? How many of you, I mean, we've all heard this, right? This is not something that is new. It's not an argument that is new. Well, there's actually been a survey that's been done. And according to this survey, 60% of centerfire rifle hunters are actually using AR and AK platform rifles, meaning that, yeah, these are rifles that are used for hunting. 60%, once again, of the people who are using centerfire rifles to hunt are using these rifles. And my understanding of the Constitution is that meets the very definition of in common use, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly right. Case on case law. These are in common use. We know based on ownership and based on usage, in common use. We even had Larry Nadler, right? Didn't he say it? It was their in common use. That's the problem. When he was talking about the assault weapon ban that was passed, he gave it up right there. He said, well, they're in common use. That's going to be our problem. And that was just said by Justice Thomas, that being repeated from what Justice oh my God, help me, Craig. I lost the name. Justice from Heller. He said it. Majority opinion in Heller.
Scalia.
Justice Scalia. Thank you. Yeah, so it's in common use. That's what makes it, not bannable, right? Basically,
right?
As it's in common use. I can tell you, I've used them for hunting. I use AR platform. I've used not the AK platform, but the SKS, the one previous to that, for hunting. I use it for hunting all the time. Yeah, and guess what I use? Guys that go hog hunting and use 55 ball ammo, 55 grain ball ammo on my AR, and it works every time. It's about shot placement and knowing what you're doing, and it's easy to do.
Dude, that sounds phenomenal. So what I'm hoping that we eventually wind up seeing from this is an actual how shall I say it? I'm hoping that we actually start to see the Constitution, that people stop making this argument, but you and I both know they won't. We know that argument is not going to they're not going to stop making it, because all they know are the talking points that their staff and the anti-gun groups push in front of them. Those are the only arguments they know.
Yeah. We don't really, this could be one of the talking points when we're talking about in common use, but the first line of defense for AR ownership and AK ownership, we do not want that line to be, well, we use them for hunting, because we're not trying to protect hunting rifles. Okay. We're trying to protect individual ownership, for protection against tyranny, for protection against crime, for use in self-defense. All right. So it's nice that they're so adaptable and usable that you can use them in hunting, but that's just a statistic down the road, as we explained to you how common they are.
Exactly, Mike. That's exactly what we need to be doing is obviously any opportunity we get to undermine one of their arguments is a good thing. But having said that, that's not the argument, and it should not be the argument. Argument.
So when we hear the president say something, when you hear the president say something like, you don't need an AR to go hunting, we shouldn't talk to him about how many ARs are in use hunting. Our response should be, sir, we're not talking about hunting. We're talking about the right of self-defense to protect ourselves against tyranny.
Well, but we're also not talking about a need. I don't have a requirement to demonstrate a need, right? It's called the Bill of Rights, not the Bill of Needs. And I have a right. Now, what you need to do is to have a legitimate argument in court as to why you can infringe on my right. And that's what you need if we're going to talk about needs versus rights.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good.
Anyway, moving right along.
With our next topic here, you got here, Craig. I've got a little comment that I heard Governor DeSantis make about Governor Newsom. They were. You remember when he do some? He obviously you're going to give this story here, but remember when you started running the ads that come to?
Oh yeah,
He was specifically putting out ads in Florida
right,
about politics and law here, and that people need to come to California. Well,
right.
one of the press conferences last week or the week before, when they asked Governor DeSantis about this, they said, "Sir, you got Governor Newsom out there running these ads. What do you have to say about that?" And he went, "Who?" And he went, "Governor Newsom." He went, "Who?" Next question. Just blew by the guy. Like he was like, "Who? Never heard of him." Next
Never heard of
question.
Well, you guys know Hollywood is known for being the place where movies are being made, except, Mike, that not a lot of movies are still being made in Hollywood because it is so
Nope.
darned expensive to employ people to do business in California, whether it's labor law, environmental law, tax law, however you want to put it. It's very expensive. So you've seen burgeoning or growing numbers of films being made in states like Florida, in states like Georgia, in Tennessee. A lot of people are leaving California who are involved in the film industry.
British Columbia also.
Oh, British Columbia. A lot of people are going to Canada, which is hilarious. So now what's going on is amid this happening and the decisions being made relating to the right, quote unquote, their right to abortion, you now have Gavin Newsom, whose idea of being pro-business is going to Hollywood and saying, "Hey, you know what? You should not be making movies in other states, in red states, because they don't believe in a woman's right to have an abortion. And your staff, your people can't have abortions there, so you should be filming in states like California." Now, Mike, what gets me is only a whack job from San Francisco, from the state of California, in the center of whack job San Francisco, would believe that the way in which to entice an industry to do business in your state is to say, "Yeah, come here and your employees can have all the abortions they want. And oh, by the way, come to California so that your children can be indoctrinated into believing they are whatever gender they want, and they can go and have their body parts chopped off and all that stuff free right here in the state of California. So bring your business to us."
Most places when they tout their healthcare system, it involves the availability of things, the cost, how quickly the demand can be met for a procedure you want, emergency medicine and how available that is. Governor Newsom was putting out there this, "Come here because we can give you an abortion," like it's saying, "Come here because if you come to our state and you get hurt, we'll fix you for free." I think he thinks that abortion is something that just pops up, like, oh my God, I'm pregnant, I got to get it out before the aliens invade. He's making abortion sound like it's a last second life and death medical emergency, or I'm going to die.
Right. And by the way, keep in mind now, in most of the cases in states that have restrictions, there are exceptions to protect the life of the mother. As a matter of fact, I can't think of any where there are not. I'm not saying there aren't any where there are not, but as far as I know, there are almost none. In most cases, what you're talking about is a restriction. I think first trimester, anything beyond the first trimester or past 15 weeks, rape, incest, and to protect the life of the mother. Those
Right.
are generally accepted exemptions that are in most of the states that actually have any sort of restriction. So you're not talking about emergency procedures that are at risk here.
Exactly right.
Yeah, but once again, this just goes to show you how out of touch. Once again, Gavin Newsom, who's considered a legitimate contender
Who?
for the Democratic nomination to be president of the United States, and I can guarantee you that on that particular policy, that there are a lot of Californians who have an issue with his level of extremism on the issue.
He's under the belief that because it's his policy and it's a Democrat liberal policy, that 100% of California is on his side.
Right. Well, but that's it's one of those things where he's in his own echo chamber. And there are
Yeah.
many in California, many policymakers who are in their own echo chamber. And so they don't realize that there's a world beyond what they believe or what they think. And most of us don't agree with them on a number of issues, this being one of them.
Yep. Very true.
All right. Moving right along, we're going to hit up. Oh, it's time for our parting shot today. And we decided to pick a couple that were actually quite appropriate for today's discussion. As we talked about hunting with assault weapons, we're talking about basically center fire semi-automatic rifles. That was what they consider to be quote unquote assault weapons. This meme particularly works. Grabbers. No one needs an AR-15 for hunting. Pro 2 airs. Yes, they do. Grabbers. Oh, yeah? What are you hunting with an AR-15? Pro 2 airs. You, if you keep trying to take my stuff. And it doesn't
That's
say
it.
stuff.
It's not about hunting.
No, it's not about hunting, but at least now we do know that there are hunters, about 60% of them, who actually do use AKs and ARs.
Oh, it's just it's disproven another one of their arguments. That's all there is to it.
And that's all it is. It's just disproving their argument. So not only are they making an irrelevant argument, but now we also know they're making a false argument.
Correct.
All right. And this next one doesn't really necessarily fall in line with the conversation of today, except for maybe being wokeness. Oh, it actually does when it comes to people just being let out. And this is how criminals think how easy it is if you get arrested for a crime to get back out on the street. Here you have an individual before a judge. The judge says, state your gender for the record. And the guy says, I identify as innocent. And the judge says, that's not how this works.
That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
At least not in Florida. I think in California or New York or in Illinois, it may work like that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Ridiculous.
Always a good time. Always a good time. All right, Mikey. Well, we've hit that moment in the show. It's time to give a shout out to our sponsors.
No. I thought it was the dance portion. I'm sorry. It's the you can say hello to our good friends over at the Guerrilla Machining, Grid Defense, the California Public Assembly, and of course, USCombatGear.com.
That's right, folks. All of these folks have the links to their websites in the description to this program. All you got to do, go there, check them out. If you see something you like, spend some money with them, donate some money to them, whatever you're going to do, send them some cash, and make sure you tell them the guys over at The Rundown sent you. With that, we're going to call it an episode, and we're going to talk to you again tomorrow, Feedback Friday. I encourage you guys, remember, like, share, subscribe, and encourage your friends to do the same.
See you tomorrow.